Okay, good evening ladies and gentlemen. It's now 6 o'clock, so we'll start on the meeting. You're here for the Government of Laws meeting to be held on the 5th of September at 6 p.m. in the Council Chambers. Can I just please bring everybody to the attention that we're not expecting any fire, but if we do, when you hear the alarm, then can you please make your way out of the building in orderly fashion and assemble in the car park that you can see to our right. Thank you very much. Okay, item 1, apologies.
Please, Chair, apologies tonight received from councillors Donnelly, Raw and Swindle, and attending as substitutes are councillors Lees and Crawley.
Item 2, approval of minutes of the previous meeting, this being the 11th of July 2019. Can we find a proposer for those minutes?
Madam Chair, I'll move them.
Okay, seconder? Mr. Wakeman, Councillor Wakeman? All those in favour? Thank you. Item 3, public participation. I'm led to believe that we haven't got anybody speaking, so we can move on from that. Item 4, interests. Have any members got any interest to declare? No? Okay, thank you. Item 5, questions. Any questions? Okay. So, we'll move on to the main item. I will just say at this point, we have got a lot to get through. We've got a very, very complex report, and I hope every member has had a chance to fully read and digest what we're about to commit on. Thank you very much. Item 6, consent to the site EV charge points for the District Council land.
Thank you, Councillor. Despite it being a very exciting title, this is a very, very straightforward report, and that's in seeking delegated authority for officers to progress cases where third-party providers are looking to install charge points on our car parks. We have such a request at the moment, which is detailed in the body of the report, and the recommendation is just to allow us to progress this and any other future approach that we might have from third-party providers. Happy to take any questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Slack.
Yeah, I've got a full question now. I'll get through.
Can you turn your mic on, please, Councillor Slack?
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, I've got 4 questions, Chair. I'll get through as fast as possible.
Point, please.
Right, thank you. At Worsham Court, there are 2 EV charge masters which charge vehicles up overnight. The cluster over the online, the customers normally buy online and order them online. So, will this be the question with these charges? Will they be online? Will they pay online? And also, if they don't pay online, is there a meter for a card machine?
Okay, I will.
That's number 1 question.
I'll do my best guess at that because it's ChargeMaster are the appointed installer provider and they'll be running it. And I believe ChargeMaster, BP ChargeMaster, are already nationally recognised, and I believe it's by app or is it RF card? Somebody help me out with that one.
Yeah, the ChargeMaster.
Thank you. It's that, and I also believe contactless or cash or card.
Yeah. Right, we'll go back to that one later. The funding for all the D2 and N2 region will be funded for 250 EVs. Am I correct in reading that the one on Worksworth Marketplace, the rapid charger, will be the only one installed? The others will come later. Is that correct? The ones at Matlock and Bank will come later.
That's not one that I can answer, I'm afraid. At the moment, Chargemaster, or through the County Council, Chargemaster have offered that particular venue as an acceptable one within the current funding scheme. The other two are mentioned in the report because they cleared a desktop assessment. In other words, Chargemaster believed that there were viable sites, and should funding be made available, then hopefully they'll be back on the table again. And that might be the subject of a future negotiation if we get delegated power.
Thank you. Number 3, being that BP, Chargemaster, BP, a big private company, of course, what price will the price, will they monopolise this? Is there fear of monopolising this BP if they've got all the machines eventually? Is this a danger to the council if the monopoly falls?
Well, I should point out the offer on this particular site is through the County Council's scheme. County Council have appointed Chargemaster as their provider. By being a host on this particular instance, it doesn't tie this authority to any provider. We're simply playing host in allowing them to place their equipment on our car park.
Yeah. And last question, being that we also in this Sheffield City region, will we possibly be funding from that area?
Just can I ask Paul to just come in on that issue?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Well, in accordance with the Council resolution back in January, the leader of the Council has recently taken a decision following consultation that the District Council will be leaving Sheffield City region, so we will fall and operate solely with the D2N2.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ratcliffe, question?
Yes, indeed, Chair, and a comment. You know, it's the simple, apparently simple reports that actually provoke the most thought and deserving discussion. I'm not happy with this.
Excuse me, Councillor Ratcliffe, can I just...
Even if they may have to be slightly rhetorical.
Councillor Ratcliffe, can I ask, first of all, will you please put your microphone on?
It's on.
It isn't.
Oh,
sorry.
it is now, yeah.
No, and can I actually say that this is a report and this is not our policy, this is not district's policy, this is county council policy.
Absolutely. I don't know why it is that we are recommending a sign-up to somebody else's policy. Why on earth can we not take this on board as a district project? Whether or not you'll agree with me, it seems to me that this is a capital project that will probably provide a return on investment within 3 or 4 years. It's intended to run for 10 years, which means there's quite likely to be an income stream generated. Why aren't the financial assessments, etc., being put forward to the commercial board of this district council for consideration for an independent project to move under this council's responsibility? It seems to me that this is eminently suitable. It matches too, I have to say, I'm very pleased to say, our considerations on green energy and climate change. So I'm all in favour of that. What I'm unhappy about is somehow that because the county council have come forward with a project which again is quite beneficial for them, that we are joining forces simply because they've identified a private contractor willing to go forward with the capital project. Why can't we take this on board ourselves?
Okay, well, my short answer to that is, as far as this report goes, we don't have access to grant funding.
No,
if I may finish.
Excuse me, Councillor, please let the officer finish answering the question.
If I may finish, the D2N2 grant is being made available to the county council. It's entirely up to us whether we collaborate with them and offer up those sites. In much the same way that the NHS already have, under the same bid, there is a charge point gone into the Whitworth Hospital, again under that same bid through the County Council. So we can either agree to be host and accept the facilities that they're offering, or decline. All this report seeks to do is get delegated authority, if we wish to proceed with it, to negotiate the terms of the host agreement, which is, in other words, allowing them to enter our site.
Yeah. Well, just to conclude, and I have a very much simpler question to finish with. As I say, I think it's a project well deserving of investigation and research, but rather than simply delegating authority to proceed along the lines of the report as it stands at this moment, I would much sooner that the recommendation be one of proceeding for a full financial analysis and investigation, and then returning to this council for consideration as a take-up by the commercial board. Now, my simple question is, can you just confirm for me whether there is any ongoing investigation likely to emerge for on-street charging points?
On-street charging points is the subject of the second phase bid that's referred to in the report. If I may go back to the earlier part of your question, first of all, to put forward a policy or a recommendation on our future provision, it will be subject of an entirely separate report. This report simply seeks consent to progress in playing host to the County Council and their provider. If we choose not to, then I'm absolutely sure that the money that's been set aside for Worksworth will go to fund another site within the D2N2 region. It is really a case of not debating whether it's the right location or whether it's the right route to take. It's an offer to accept a charge point or decline it.
Councillor Purdy.
Sorry, it was for debate.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Chapman. Councillor Hughes, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to welcome this report. I think it fits in with our climate change motion that was passed at Council previously. I just got one question, and that is, what is the likelihood of the OLED funding going ahead, and when will that go ahead? If you know, or if you don't know, then I'll ask the question.
Again, I'm a messenger as far as the schemes are concerned. The background behind the OLEV bid, as you rightly say, it's for on-street charge points, and it's for those households that don't have access to driveways, garages or forecourts of their own on their own curtilage. The County Council have chosen not to follow the line of placing charge points on the streets themselves. A number of authorities follow the same route, Hampshire for example, and several others. The aim, I think, in our collaboration in the second instance, and why we and other districts and boroughs were invited along to discuss this with the County Council, was, were there any opportunities to provide charge points off street on District Council owned land in a catchment area where there might be a high demand and people didn't have their own charge points at home. What we did was put forward several sites where the immediate catchment was clear that it was predominantly on-street charging, or there would be a need for on-street charging. Again, we put numerous sites forward. It's really down to Chargemaster and the County Council whether they want to proceed with any or all of them. And the funding, whilst it's there, there's no guarantee that the County Council will get it. Because the bottom line is we're helping on an on-street issue, we're not the highway authority. I would like to think that our collaboration with them is a positive one, and that something will emerge from it to help kickstart the introduction of charge points.
FLITTER.
Thank you, Chair. Well, that word collaboration, it's not one that I prefer to see in a written report, but I am glad that discussions have been going on between the two authorities. And I'm not like Mike in a way. I see this as an opportunity, and I see it as good for the environment, and it does help our climate change agenda. What I'm looking for on this is that the officers do need, if things move on and opportunities arise, our officers have got to have that possibility and that authority to move forward, to include. Now, it doesn't matter to me whether it is the district council or the county council's initiative. If it's going to benefit and benefit people of the area, we should be working in partnership and providing that service. So yes, I'm all in favour of going ahead and giving officer recommendation, but I do hope, and the question is, that there will be consultation with members at a later stage if anything moves forward on this, because especially I'm looking very parochial at Matlock, and we talk about Edgefold Road. The positioning on Edgefold Road is paramount, and I think we don't know from this report whether it's going to be in our own car park at the back, where members and staff go, or whether it's the car park actually opposite the Edgefold Club. But wherever it is, it needs further discussion on problems it may arise with other parking issues. But that's to come in the future, and I'm quite willing to. Has it been moved yet?
No, we're still on questions, sorry.
Well,
have you got a question within this?
The question was, will there be ample consultation with members as this moves forward?
I think it does say in the body of the report that even though delegated authority would be granted to officers, any future negotiations would include ward members.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pauling, question.
Yes, I must admit I hadn't thought of the point that Councillor Ratcliffe raised, and I just like a bit of clarity on it really. It's for 10 years going forward, and the first question is, will the County Council be making money out of it? And the second question is, if it's for 10 years, are we then tied, particularly for the Bakewell Agricultural Business Centre, are we just tied to those 8 units, or could we put extra ones on so that we could also make money out of it?
Okay, I'll take the first point first. Derbyshire County Council won't be making any money out of it. It would be a commercial investment by Chargemaster, their appointed installer provider. The benefit to the County Council, and I presume to us in acting in partnership with them, is that 75% of the cost of the installation, a feasibility study and groundworks, comes from the grant. 25% is to be put forward by the County Council. Now, in the County Council's case, their appointed provider is meeting that 25% cost. So Chargemaster are providing match funding and not the County Council. In return, Chargemaster operate the units for a 10-year period, after which they can either be passed over to the district or the host. But I say the district because obviously NHS would get the unit at Whitworth. The host would either take over the apparatus after 10 years and the running of it, or can instruct for it to be removed outright. Moving on to the second question, the fact that that unit is there doesn't preclude us from introducing any other facilities, either on the same site or nearby.
Thank you.
It's an entirely free unit that we're getting, in effect.
Are there any more questions on this point? Okay, then I will bring it into debate. Can I call upon Councillor Chapman, please?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I think with the concerns about this being a monopoly, I think you need to understand a little bit more about how network charging points work. Most people who use charging points have already predetermined where they're going to use them, because there is an app, an online system where they can plan where their journeys go, where their range of electric charge is, and that same information will provide prices of charging. So we're not, if this is an extortionate price, then they just won't use those. This is an opportunity to show our commitment that we made on May the 31st. Its prime consideration has got to be the effect on our climate, not whether somebody's going to make a couple of quid out of this at some point. This is what we need to show as our determination and our intentions. So I'm fully behind this. And I'll move that, Chair.
I'll second that.
Do you wish to speak again on that?
No, I'll say what I want to
Okay. I'm just going to go through the order, Councillor Hughes. I've got Councillor Purdy, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I welcome this because of the statement we made, and climate change is on our highest agenda. But there's a number of aspects to this. One is the starting point, and it's welcome. I can't agree with Councillor FLITTER's connotation on collaboration. I think collaboration is extremely important. Extremely important, and if you are involved with a non-structural reform, you might see what's going. But we're already collaborating with Peak Park and County Council on this matter. And in fact, I'm going to the climate summit that Peak Park's putting on October 15th, which we see as a launch pad for bringing much greater impetus to this kind of debate. And I'm sure Councillor Chapman, as chair of the Climate Change Working Group, has got this on his agenda and his route now, for this district council to take charge of our own carbon. So it is on the agenda, and that's an aspiration we've got, and we will see it through. So I just see this as a starting point, Chair, and I think we should be welcome.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I fully support it. It's a starting point, same as Gary just said, it's a starting point, and they're being installed, and hopefully there'll be many, many more coming along. Also, Chair, I see some electric refuge vehicles now being presented out. In Scotland, there was some electric refuge vehicles. There's electric buses. There's tram. We see the green shoots of this sprouting up, and we need to keep this growing and expanding to help to save the world for the next generation. When I see wind turbines going round and solar farms, I think to myself, well, that's good, green and clean energy, and that's what we need to go down. But we've got, as some of my colleagues mentioned, BP. I presume it's the British Petroleum Company. I presume it is a subsidiary of it. Well, it's ironical, isn't it, really? BP probably done more disasters in pollution and a lot of companies, really. We've seen over the years massive oil pollution from BP, and now they're coming down on the green side. It's a little bit hypocritical, but there we are. We can't do nothing about that, but I will be supporting this because it's the way we should go. But in future we should look at the people who are providing this. I don't think BP are the greatest people to provide this. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Ratcliffe.
Right, Chair. Let's have it on the record that I am not against this and its underlying benefits. In fact, there's probably no one, well, I'm sure there are equal people who welcome our moves towards carbon emission reduction. But I felt that the point was worth making given our financial position and the need for savings that we have to make, that we could have a double benefit from this. Because there's no doubt that over the 10-year period of these installations, the rise in electric vehicle use is going to escalate. So I'm quite sure that my point about the capital return on this being met within 4 years, leading then to perhaps 5 or 6 years of economic financial return for the investor, is a sound one. And it seems to me that the council could have taken that opportunity. Now, I admit that we presented with something here by the county council, and it is well worth perhaps taking and seizing. But it seems to me that we should certainly be looking at our future investment opportunities in this sort of area, because it marries both our needs, the one to fully come up with a practical positive energy carbon emission strategy, and a financial income stream too, under the responsibility of the commercial board. So I'm supporting it, I'm not against it.
Thank you for that reflection on that, Councillor Ratcliffe. It will be noted of that issue. But I'm sure, as Keith did state earlier on, it isn't a closed door that doesn't stop us in the future doing our issues with climate change and bringing in our relevance to that. I'll move on to Councillor Hobson, please.
Thank you, Chair. I will be supporting the motion. I feel the fact that we currently have no electric vehicle charging points on the District Council's car parks, the fact that we're going to get one is a good starting point for us. And unlike Councillor FLITTER, I do welcome the collaboration, working with the Derbyshire County Council. We're all in this together.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. Can I, as there are members of the commercial board here as well, I'd just like to commend the idea of having charging points to the commercial board as an opportunity to consider, and also the other opportunity, which I was on holiday in the United States, and I saw a lot of car parks there with solar panels above the car parking spaces, and they served two purposes. They kept the cars cool, and they provided charging for electricity on a large open space which is otherwise unused. And therefore I would commend that as an opportunity potentially for the commercial board to consider with our car parks, and for example station car park in Matlock and the car parks in Ashbourne and Bakewell, which are large and there's no overhanging branches and trees or anything like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cruz, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair. Certainly fully support it. I think we definitely need to be moving forward with this proposal. So it's great that it's come to the council for review. Councillor Chapman said, don't worry, we can make a few quid. I don't worry, we can make a few quid either. One thing that I would raise as a concern and an opportunity is that I've got a hybrid, and it's great. It would be great to have some points to plug in. But also I do worry that if we could gradually creep to there being just one provider, or one provider being dominant. So I think that it looks like a commercial board, we ought to be, as a council, evaluating this strategy to see if we can use it as a way to make some money, and also making sure that people that are actually going to plug in and pay, that they've got some alternatives, so that we don't lock ourselves into one provider, because if we do that, then the price will go up. So I'm not against people making money, I am against there being a monopoly that will hurt the end user, and I'm one of those end users. So I'd just like us to just consider that for the commercial boards, I'll definitely support the motion.
Right, I don't believe there's anybody got any more issues on this. So it's been proposed and seconded. All in favour? Thank you. Motion is passed.
Item 7.
Section 106 Annual Report. I'm going to Caroline for that, please.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I just want to apologise because there does appear to be some discrepancies in some of the figures throughout the report. But what I can confirm is that the correct closing balance as of 31st of March 2019 is actually 3533442. We have a committed sum of 431533 and unallocated, non-committed is 3101909. I'll then go into the report. Basically, the report sets out the Council's current position on income and allocation of the Section 106 legal agreements for the financial year of 2018-19. It also provides openness and transparency of the process for members of the public, hopefully gaining confidence in key areas that we are regularly monitoring the sites, by which I mean that they will be regularly visited and assessed to see if any of the triggers set within the corresponding agreement have been met. This occurs on a 6-monthly cycle. And we also ensure that monies due are requested in a timely manner, so for clarity, as soon as the trigger has been hit, an invoice is raised for the contribution. I would like to point out though, and draw your attention to 2 points. Firstly, item 4 of the committee report, where it states that we've entered into 129 agreements, 77 of which contain financial obligations, which in total value is just over 23 million. The payment of financial obligations is not linked to the grant of planning permission itself, but the implementation of the planning permission. Therefore, if the planning permission is not implemented, the financial obligation will not be payable. As such, it should not be assumed that all of this money has either been received by the Council or is either available at the present time, as the payments will become due over a number of years. Secondly, I'd like you to bear in mind that when contributions are requested within an agreement, they are entered into to help manage the impact of the development, primarily for things such as, but not restricted to, education, healthcare, highways. Once the contributions have been agreed, they cannot be used for any other purpose. For example, the purpose of the affordable housing policy within the Council's local plan is to ensure that we deliver affordable housing to meet the needs of the area. In some cases, the amount of affordable housing required on the site may exceed the levels of need in that location, and in such circumstances we will seek to negotiate a financial contribution. Firstly, because without that plan application, it may be refused, and secondly, this also enables affordable housing to be provided elsewhere in areas where development may not take place. With that in mind, I ask for the contents of the report, once amended, to be noted and approved for publication on the Council's website.
Any questions, please? Councillor Purdy.
No questions, Chair. I'm happy to move the report, but I'd just like to add, if I may, picking up on Councillor Lu's question last night, I do think this is an issue that members, particularly new members, would gain benefit by workshops. So I agree with Mr Wilson this afternoon that we will be putting more workshops on in the future, asking members as well what they'd like to be included in a workshop, and this will be on the agenda. So it is a complex matter, it's a moving feast, it's what you read today, but if Caroline brought it back tomorrow, I'm sure it would be different figures. So that's how you have to read it. So I'm more than happy to move the recommendation, Chair, for noting.
I'm just going to continue with questions, if you don't mind. That was taken noted. Councillor FLITTER.
Thank you, Chair. Well, if that's been moved, I'm seconding the motion.
Can we just carry on with questions?
Because, yes, I'm going to, but we need a seconder. The interesting point here is something that was said then, is because a lot of people ask me about developer contributions. It's a hot topic at the moment. And what people don't understand is that we do try and control that. But it's interesting to say that we do visit. Well, can you just tell us a little bit more about the triggers and the timings? And is that related, the timings especially, are they length of period timings, or are they development control timings at any stage of development? And what are those actual triggers that you know, that force you to go and check on development?
Okay. The triggers are actually, or the contributions and the triggers are agreed with the developer and development control before the actual planning approval is given. That's the agreement. Once that's been established, that's obviously incorporated into the agreement itself. And they vary from agreement to agreement. It can be based on 25% of the development of the site that they pay that amount at that point, and then a further amount paid at 50%, or it can be prior to the commencement of the development, but that's all under agreement via the development management team and the developer itself, and agreed at that time.
Okay.
Councillor Ratcliffe.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can I agree with Councillor Purdy that this is a complex area and easily misunderstood. I think we had a little bit more clarity last night, and I want to pursue something from last night in a moment. But two questions, Caroline, if I may. On your report, paragraph 3.2 talks about the clawback dates. And the fact that if the contribution is not spent in full or in part, we're under obligation to refund that. Can you tell me, do we have any contributions or agreements that are close to that date of clawback?
No, we don't. At
No.
this time we don't.
So,
and it's not put into every agreement, the clawback time. So some of them specify it, some of them don't. But the historical ones that have, we've received the contribution already and spent it.
okay, so adequate time for us to be using that money when we come up with a use for it. But paragraph 2.1, if I may, just for clarity's sake, funding or provision of an infrastructure project where 5 or more separate planning obligations have already been sought for the funding or the provision of that project. Does this also apply to where the monies are used for affordable housing?
No, it doesn't.
No. That was my assumption, but I just wanted it brought out into the open. Yeah, right. Just in respect to last night, there's a comment about the use of these monies for other purposes, infrastructure purposes. Can you just confirm once again that monies realised in one particular area cannot be used other than affordable housing in a different area? The reason I'm asking this is because there are many areas where, for instance, infrastructure problems are arising that would demand or benefit from one of such monies being spent, but because of their nature are highly unlikely ever to attract 106 monies because of the constrained nature of that locality in-house building. If you understand what I'm saying.
If I'm correct in understanding your question, and I may hand this over, basically affordable housing is the only one that has off-site contribution, basically because the other elements, as in education and healthcare, are specific to the area in order for that development to be acceptable. With affordable housing, the actual area where the development has taken place may not require affordable housing, and it might be more appropriate for the other surrounding areas that would never encounter development to have that opportunity for affordable housing. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I see again what you're saying. I'm just saying that there are localities in the district that by their nature are highly unlikely to have any development where 106 monies will arise, but could beneficially use some of the contributions that arose in other areas for infrastructure relief. But I think what was being said last night was that that is not
that cannot be so. Those monies can only be used to alleviate infrastructure problems that arise directly in the locality where the development has taken place.
Perhaps, Chair, if I could respond, given that Caroline wasn't there last night and I obviously gave the answer. I think to go back to first principles, the issue is Section 106 contribution can only be required to mitigate a particular impact of a development. So it's to mitigate an impact to make a development acceptable, which in all other respects would be unacceptable because of the adverse effects. So where you are securing a financial contribution, that contribution is required to mitigate an impact arising from the development you are improving. Now in every case, apart from affordable housing, that localised impact will be very much local to that development. So it might be a highways improvement that's necessary, it might be to improve healthcare. The difference is affordable housing because that's not caught by the building restrictions. And affordable housing contributions can be secured in one part of the district and spent in an entirely different part of the planning area. The advantage of that is that it enables us to support rural affordable housing, which otherwise would not be subject to specific Section 106 because large-scale development doesn't take place in those areas. So that's the only exception where your point would arise.
Right. It was moved and seconded. Is there anybody else who wishes to make a point? Councillor Fawley.
Yes, my question's been answered. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to thank Caroline for a very concise and informative report. It is a very difficult and complex subject, and I welcome her comments about openness and transparency. I think it's very important in this area.
Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Just two questions, Chair.
Just two questions. The three debtors. Bancroft Homes, we wrote that off. Blue Line have now paid, haven't they?
That's correct.
Yeah, and also Mr Granger is the only one left, isn't it?
Yeah, Mr Granger, as we've explained, is applying for a variation to the Section 106, which enables him to, the contribution will still be payable, but upon completion of his development, not upon commencement. So the variation, we're just waiting for signature for that to be received.
Just one more question. If there's a surplus of money with 106 agreements, it's a very controversial question really, and it probably won't I'm a big supporter of council housing coming back, and could it ever be used in that instance, build council housing?
Yes, the contributions can be used to fund affordable housing through any means, with a housing association or a council or a community land trust.
Are there anybody else wishing to ask any questions? Anybody else wishing to make a point on this recommendation? Then I take it that it's been moved and seconded. All in favour? It's moved. Item 8, Estate Regeneration Manager Contract Extension. I'll bring Robin, please.
Thank you, Chair. There was a report on a project we've been working on Hurst Farm for the last 2 years. There's a need to continue the post with the officer that we have currently. She's doing very well in bringing investment into the estate and linking up with a range of community projects and investors. We have funding left over from the original grants from the government, so there's no additional cost to the council in running this project for a further 2 years. So in simple terms, the report asks members to approve the extension of the contract.
Councillor Flitter, question?
Well, I've got no questions because it's a very simple statement. What I do believe is I've seen quite a lot of activity from the estate manager being within the Hurst Farm domain. The estate has benefited 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-fold over the years with their relationship with this council, with the partnerships that we've managed to create, and the difference in the community is vast. And we're moving forward at a great rate of knots, and that's purely down to Rob and the team at this council. And I do commend them and move this report.
On that, does that find a seconder?
It does, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ratcliffe. Would you like to?
I would. I'd like to make a comment and echo everything that
Steve has said. We've previously voiced our praise for the work in progress here and the efforts of the manager. And you know, even if there were a direct cost, and there isn't, as you quite rightly pointed out, Rob, it would be money well spent. This is not simply and solely about capital projects. It's also about someone going in there, showing concern, care, addressing the needs of this community, promoting social cohesion, and all those sort of almost intangible benefits that do come about. So I have no hesitation in supporting this. I think it's one of the finest projects of its type that we've recently had the good fortune to invest in.
Thank you for that. Councillor Purdy.
Thank you, Chair. I want to add my voice to what Councillor FLITTER and Councillor Ratcliffe said. This is a really good advert for this council, and the work that Bob and his team have done, and the work that Councillor FLITTER and your team have done on this farm estate. When I used to go up there in my last capacity in the early 70s, and to see the transformation now is great, and it's a good advert, so it's a good story. Well done to all involved.
Anybody else wishing to make any comments? Councillor Cruz?
I spent an afternoon with Rob and the team being briefed on the soil regeneration, and I was really inspired, so I think it's great work. And I think it's just what more can we do? How can we build upon that and help bring more resources to bear in a very important area for our district? So total support from me.
Okay, it's been proposed and seconded. All in favour? Thank you. Item 9, Strategic Housing Investment Coordinator Contract Extension. Rob again, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Perhaps a less well-known project that my team is involved with, but a few years ago we got some revenue funding from the County Council through what's called the Transformational Challenge Award programme. And again, we've had an officer in post working in the team on a 2-year contract. The report is asking to extend that by a further 2 years. The post holder brings a lot of experience and expertise into the team concerning housing development. And of course it doesn't just work on behalf of Derbyshire, but the whole of the county and the city council as well, the Derby City Council. So you can see from the report there's a number of things that the post holder has been doing, and in all honesty has brought a lot of expertise on the housing development side, particularly from a housing association point of view into the team, but also helping to organise and share best practice across all of the Derbyshire authorities. That's been really key, so we're not all running around replicating each other. We've got one central resource that can do it on our behalf, so it's been good value for the authority. Again, there's no cost to the council because of the balance of the funding that's left over from the regional grant.
Again, I move to questions. Anybody got any questions? I move to today. Can I find somebody who can propose this? Councillor Pauly.
Yes, I can propose it, but I have got one question. I got to over the course of the next 2 years paragraphs, and it doesn't seem to include the in the previous paragraph. There was a thing about tackling empty homes. Is that still going to continue?
Yes, so the work up to now has been helping us identify the different routes we have available to us to tackle the empty homes. But in all honesty, I just focused on the 2 key things. There will be other things that the Coast Guard will do, one of which I'm sure will be work on empty properties as well.
Thank you. I'm not quite sure where I am now, whether I'm proposing it or seconding it. I'll do whichever.
Okay, I'll take it as a question. And so, have we got anybody to move this proposal? Councillor Slack, would you like to?
Yeah, same as Councillor Pauly just said, empty homes is a very big issue, really. And I'm
pleased to see that this is addressing this. He did a very good job in addressing a lot of this, so I'm very supportive of carrying on.
Do I take that as a proposal for the recommendation?
Yes.
Do I find a seconder? Councillor Pawley, you're wishing to second this?
Yes, I second.
Anybody else wishing to make any comments? Councillor Purdy.
Thank you, Chair. Picking up on what Councillor Cruz said, I'm not trying to teach us to suck eggs, but I'm sure you've read the report, but I'd just like to point out 2.4, where it states over the course of the next 2 years the project in the Derbyshire Dales will continue to support the development of the Council's business plans for new council housing and secure new affordable housing, so on, so on.
Anybody else wishing to say anything? With that, it has been proposed and seconded. All in favour? Thank you. Item 10, Communications and Marketing Strategy.
Thank you, Chair. That's me. I bring the Communications and Marketing Strategy to this committee every September, and the strategy itself is overseen by a Communications and Marketing Hub here at the Council, which features representation from across all service areas. The strategy itself actually doesn't move. It was created 5 years ago, and what it does do is set out a multi-channel approach to the way that we engage and communicate with residents, stakeholders and visitors to the Derbyshire Dales. What does move is the action plans associated with the strategy, and you'll see at item 2 that we're looking to review last year's action plan. I'm pleased to say that most of those points have either been successfully completed or about to be completed or are awaiting some sort of direction. And at item 3 I'm asking you to approve the Communications Hub's proposal for a new action plan for the coming year. And I think it's worth just pointing out the top 3 items at number 3 on that. The first one is a government requirement, actually. It's a new website accessibility statement we've got to put together. It's quite complicated and it's well worth doing, because what it does is enable people who use the website, people with various issues and impairments, to be able to use it just the same as anybody else would. On the second point, we've got an intranet called SID, which is showing signs of age. It was created 5 years ago, and looking to update that in the coming year. And then also at item 3, and this is part and parcel of the way that we've extended filming of meetings, including this one. So, as you know, in addition to the last administration where we filmed live streamed all council and special council meetings, we're now doing policy committees and also planning committees. And what we want to do, and I'm conscious that the microphone is screening now, is to make the audio in this room a lot better, not just for the people listening at home, but for the people who actually come and sit at the back and listen in the council chamber. So what the hub will be looking to do is to improve that audio some which way, possibly by putting more speakers in, possibly by putting speakers in the roof, so that we get a consistency of audio, whoever happens to be using the microphone. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Councillor Ratcliffe, question, thank you.
I don't have a question, Chair, but I'd be very happy to move this. And if I make a very quick comment, I think communications and marketing is one of this council's many success stories. I remember the years when the state of our communications and general publicity was quite moribund. I have to say the only thing that I think needs lining up a little is, if you like, attendance or connections with local press about Radio Derby. You know, it's a shame that really, you know, given, for instance, the first item on the agenda, which is a direct benefit to Derbyshire Dales residents in so many ways. There's nobody here listening to it. But of course we have the YouTube, and that's picking up, I believe. I think you know, the number of users of that are increasing. So I think Jim can be just about fireably proud of his work, and I know he has benefit. I hope I'm right in saying this, from the hub people that have joined your team. So I'm very pleased and to move the report and to receive it, of course.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson.
Chair, when I was a new councillor, I was very keen that we did have more video coverage of our council meetings. I think it's vitally important that people have the opportunity to see these meetings at a later date. It does improve our democracy and our accountability to our residents. I would like to thank Jim for all his hard work in this. I know it's very difficult to fit it all in, and the room and the sound is not ideal, but I do congratulate him.
Upon that, would you like to second it at this point? Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd also very good with this report. I think the work that Jim does is excellent for the Council. I've got three comments that I'd really like to make. The first is on the objectives associated with marketing communications under 1.5, I think it is in the paragraph. I would say that one area that before I became a councillor, and now as a councillor I see it the other way around, a lot of people don't understand what the council cannot do. They may know something about what the council can do, that it looks after planning, refuse collection, etc. But they don't really understand what it can't do. For example, the relationship between planning and the number of doctor's surgeries that there are, or the planning and the number of schools. And I've received a number of questions as a councillor from residents. One of them was blaming the council for the variety of shops in Matlock. Now, you know, it's sad, but there is something. I don't think the council necessarily. What the council cannot do is understood amongst residents, and it might be we should put some effort into frequently asked questions or something like that. What does the council do? What does it doesn't do? That sort of thing. The second point is about the new signs that are being put in parks and open spaces, which I welcome in terms of the clarity. They're very clear. They communicate the ownership of the park. They also communicate the rules associated with using the parks. And as a dog walker, they're very useful because I can see where I can walk my dog, where I have to use a lead, etc. So I'm very pleased that signs are being put up. I would say one thing though, that in some ways putting the restrictions on the same sign as the park sign sort of gives a sort of municipal feel and isn't particularly welcoming. And could some thought be put into perhaps altering the design to allow so that the restrictions are there, but the position of the sign as naming the sign and showing Derbyshire ownership of the sign of the park, they're sort of separated in some way. The second is, I think we've noted on two occasions, certainly Tansey Parish Council has noted that the signs in some places are located poorly and need to be moved to a safer location. They have sharp edges, and Tansey Parish Council was concerned that where their sign on their open space would be located, it was possible that somebody might fall against the sign just because of the place where it was put. So I think there is a health and safety issue associated with some of the signs. And again, it may be that the edge needs to have something around it so that if somebody does fall against it, it wouldn't be a sharp blow and it wouldn't cause any damage. The other point is about the actions, and can I go back to that one later? I apologise, I forgot to bring my glasses with me and I can't read my writing.
Okay. Well, your points have been taken, and I would like to just suggest that if you would possibly, if you haven't already done so, talk to Jim and whoever about your concerns over the health and safety of these signs and where they are, and then maybe obviously something could possibly be looked into on that issue. Moving on, Councillor Hill.
Thank you. 2.3 mentions the Members Development Group. Just wondering if there's any chance of that being resurrected sooner rather than later, if possible. Sandra's doing an excellent job of the development of our team, but she's really sort of predicting our views and ideas at the moment. Thank you.
Councillor Purdy.
Chair, can I answer that? We have had discussions in group, and it's because the councillors wanted to the chamber for publicity. But yes, the member back and development group will take place. We've discussed it at Leaders Advisory Group. We are keen for it to be resurrected. We just need to see how it's shaped for the future. And with Sandra's help, we will do that.
Thank you for that, Councillor Purdy. Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, a lot of the signs are really good now. I'm entering the Derbyshire Dales on the southern side from Derby, from the Amber Valley area. Derbyshire Dales really stands out, and then you look back at the Amber Valley, it's just old-fashioned and dusty. But I think, yeah, we're really doing well. And thank you, Jim, for everything you do for communications. I know Jim was a former Derby County publicity officer, and I think he did a good job there. He did a good job. Thank you, Jim, for all you do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Purdy. Paulie, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can I just, first of all say...
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Can I just say, I'm really glad to see that we're continuing to generate sponsorship through the welcome signs and other signs that we've got. But could I ask you, the big belly bins, I understand the advertising on that is not what we hoped, and I wondered if you could say what you're thinking of doing to try and make that function better.
I think that the big belly bins were my responsibility originally, but I think we sought advice and were told that advertising on big belly bins in their positions wouldn't be the right thing to do, or wouldn't be against regulations. I think Sandra may have found since that that's not the case, so something we can move forward on.
Thank you. Councillor FLITTER.
Thank you, Chair. Well, the report is an excellent report, and I'm fully behind it. I haven't got a lot of questions on this. I was going to try and get in somewhere about the signs, but Councillor Hughes has aptly described what we feel about those. But your response that we talk about this afterwards is a little bit overdue, because the council has had complaints, not only from Matlock but from Tansley over the sighting. Nothing seems to have happened yet. Nothing seems to be done about them. So we shall be taking that up in another quarter, because there was consultation and we do agree with the signage and the branding of this area, but there was no consultation over the actual content and size and placing of these signs, which local membership could have advised. The only thing about the report is that I asked that on the front page there are photographs. Could we get this up to date, please? Because the ones on the market in Matlock, although they did a brilliant job and they're still operative with their businesses in town, it is not the team that run the market at the moment. And there is an excellent photograph on Market Times for this area and a national magazine, and we are featured on that, and photographs in there could be available.
Thank you, Councillor FLITTER. We have an extensive photographic archive, and we'll carefully select what we should do in 2019.
Thank you. Okay, it's been Councillor Morley, sorry.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of positive points I'd like to make. Split into two, really. One being from a tourist point of view, and the other from a constituent's point of view, looking for planning information. Firstly, from the tourist point of view, the website is excellent, advertising what we've got, what we have had, and what's up and coming. And it's always very difficult, I'm sure, to keep things up to date. It's colourful, it's attractive, it follows the usual ADA type model of attraction, interest, desire and action, all that sort of thing. So that's highly commended, thank you for that. And from a constituent's point of view, at a parish council meeting the other evening, a comment was received on how useful and how easy, and they did say the word easy, the website was to use to access planning applications and the information, which isn't always the word easy and the internet that go together. So I thought that was worth commenting on, so thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Councillor Hughes, have you managed to find your other point? Without the glasses.
Thank you very much, yes. I'd like to echo the point about the website being very easy to use, and most of it's very easy to use. But just going on to the videoing of meetings, there was a meeting, planning meeting, I think, where somebody made a rude remark about some of the councillors, which was then edited out. I'm not sure whether the YouTube video is supposed to be verbatim or not, but I would prefer that it was that those asides were left in, because they demonstrate the nature of the meeting. They demonstrate how the meeting went, perhaps.
Chair, can I just come in there? The only reason really it was edited out was because a 10-minute recess was called at the same time, so it sort of made sense because it was out of the meeting, the recess had been called, and it made sense to edit out those 10 minutes of nothingness, basically, so it just went with everything else.
Councillor Cruz.
Thank you, Chair. I think echoing comments from everybody else, Jim and the team clearly do a great job. It's a real strength, so we can really build on that. So that's really, really excellent. I was curious when I was reading through the report to understand Jim's perspective and maybe Councillor Chapman's perspective as well, in terms of the connection to the climate challenge that we have, the climate emergency, and what we declared, and how we can connect that back to the strategy, to marketing and communication strategy. Any thoughts?
I'll just make just a quick point on that, Councillor Cruz. That is the intention of the group. I mean, it is important that we do that because people need to be updated and see what we are actually doing. We're not quite at the stage to produce something of that quite yet. We've got our second group meeting next week, but after the presentation to Council, we will be looking to work with you to get those points forward.
Fantastic.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded by... Sorry. Oh, sorry, councillors.
If I just ask the question, there is a report coming later on about the implementation of the CRM system. What impact is that going to have on the website and the changes to the website through that?
Thank you, Chair. Initially what we're looking to do is to create a new takeover splash page. So the home page will change and become much more dynamic and point in the direction of the new transactional ability of the website. So at the moment we have a website where you can order things, but the payment situation is very much detached from that. The new CRM means that you have to do everything in one go. So the new home page will certainly point people in the right direction from that point of view. What we're looking then to do is for the CRM to settle in, and I think the aim is really then to look at whether or not the actual website needs to catch up. But certainly in the first instance, the idea is to have this takeover homepage, which really points to all the things that this new CRM is offering.
Thank you. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All in favour? Thank you. Item 11, the role of the Head of Internal Audit. I'll bring in Mrs. Wilson, Jenny Wilson.
Williams.
Oh gosh, sorry, beg me pardon.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the purpose of this report is just to bring to members' attention, make them aware of SIP for publication in relation to the role of the Head of Internal Audit. You've got an extract from the publication at Appendix 1, but you can see the full report. There's a link at 1.2. So the statement sets out 5 principles of the role of the Head of Internal Audit, and in the report I've tried to demonstrate how we meet each of those principles. So the recommendation is really that the committee consider if they're happy that the role of audit is meeting those principles. I'm just trying to answer any questions.
Are there any questions upon that? Councillor Radcliffe, I think you were just first before Councillor Hughes. Councillor Radcliffe. Well.
However, just got one very straightforward question, and can I say I found the report very concise and underlying, reinforcing the approach that we've always had at this council about having good financial security and protocol to see that that we do keep ourselves financially solvent, etc. My question relates to paragraph 2.2 about you say in 1819 the senior auditor undertook a review of the leisure contract management. My question is simply, will you institute something similar when the new waste management contract is approved and underway?
Yes, there will be something on our risk analysis, and we'll take that into account and put it at the appropriate time.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say that what an excellent and clear report this was. Turning to the car parks review audit, you gave it a reasonable rating. I'm not asking about that particular rating. My question is more to do with the move to card payments in the car parks, how that will impact on the internal audit that you will do on car parks.
Councillor Hughes, yeah, you lost me on that one, but I do believe it's in the next report. This is actually about the role that the Head of Internal Audit acts within our council.
Sorry.
Is there anybody else wishing to speak upon this? Do I find a proposal for this?
I wish to move the report, thank you, Chair.
Second.
It's been proposed and seconded. All in favour? Thank you. Item 12, Internal Audit Report concluded under the 1920 Operational Audit Plan.
Thank you. Yes, so this report details the areas that we've looked at since the last meeting. If you turn to Appendix 1, you can see we've issued 3 substantial reports and 1 reasonable report. So they're our top 2 categories, so we're very happy with that. It means we don't have any great concerns at all and things are operating well. All the recommendations we've made have been agreed and officers are currently working to implement those. I don't have any issues in relation to fraud, you'll be pleased to know. And the recommendation is that the report be approved and any questions.
With that then, Councillor Hughes, we'll bring you back and see whether we can start again on that
Thank
question.
you, Chair. I was just wondering whether the move to card payments will mean that you have to change your audit procedures in the car park, and have there been any issues as a result of the fact that the card payment system doesn't always work?
At the start of each audit, we have a meeting with the manager and we go through the risks of the system and how the system operates and discuss those with the manager, and any new areas we build into our testing schedule and we'll have a look at those. So if there is a problem with
card payments not being accepted, we would look into that area at the time and report back.
Any more questions? Then I move to Councillor Wakeman. Would you like to?
I propose it.
Do I find a second? Councillor Morley. So it's been proposed and second. All in favour? Item 13. External Auditor's Annual Audit Letter for 2018-19. I'll probably say this name wrong as well. We're going to bring in John Presley. Got it? To just go over this with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Karen has provided you with an excellent synopsis of the information contained within our annual audit letter. What the annual audit letter aims to do is to just summarise in reasonably simple wording an overview of the work that we've undertaken as your external auditor for 2018-19, and it's designed to be read by a fairly wide audience. Therefore, it doesn't go into as much detail as our audit completion report, which went to the July authority meeting. As a quick sort of overview, we have given you an unqualified opinion in relation to your accounts. So we'll say that we give a true and fair view of the Council's position as at the year end and have been appropriately prepared in line with the SIF code. The other information published alongside the financial statements was consistent with the information contained within your accounts. With regard to the value for money conclusion, we are satisfied that in all significant respects the Council has put in place proper arrangements to secure economy, efficiency and effectiveness, and we have also fulfilled the requirements of reporting in relation to the National Audit Office in relation to whole of government accounts. We did not use any of our special powers under the 2014 Act to issue a report in the public interest or to make written recommendations to the Council. Overall, I think it's a very positive report and reflects the good work of the finance team in relation to the accounts and the financial affairs. And our overview is that the Council has taken a positive and constructive approach to our audit, and we wish to thank members and officers for their support and cooperation during the audit. I'll take the report as read, and I would like to open up the report for any questions that members may have.
Thank you for that, John. Firstly, I'd just like to say thank you for the work that you do for us, and thanks to all the staff internally for helping you get to this point. But as I did say when you brought this report to the previous meeting, it's a shame it has to be called unqualified, because it just sounds Irish when we're getting a positive feedback on it. But I'd like to bring in Councillor PURDY. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Well, thank you, John. We know we've got a good finance team, so it's nice for external auditors to say it again. In these times of uncertainty, and as the lead member of this authority, uncertainty does not help us forward plan, and that's a great frustration. We know that the settlement from government is for 1 year, and it's guesswork what will happen in the future. I just want to bring in that awful word Brexit and ask how you risk assess what the risk to authorities on accounts is viewed from your perspective.
In terms of our risk assessment, issues like Brexit are considered to bring about the uncertainty to which you've outlined. It does mean that the planning horizon is much shorter than it might otherwise be. Decisions aren't being made by central government on future financial settlements, etc., whilst the position is up in the air. So, in a nutshell, it's more the issue of uncertainty than anything else, and that does tend to get embodied within the wording that we use around the forward look when we refer to the uncertainties that will continue to be faced with regard to understanding what the outcome will be of the comprehensive spending review. So, like many issues, it brings uncertainty, and it sort of it means that clarity on the future finances isn't there, and Karen and the team have to sort of keep a weather eye open for the unfolding position and then respond to it as the position becomes clearer.
Councillor FLITTER.
Thank you, Chair. Well, we've been here before, haven't we, with this one. Yes, it is a good report, and I do echo the points made by Councillor PURDY, that we have and we know, and we state every year what an excellent financial team, along with the corporate team of this council that we've got. And I echo those points. And I think my questions really on this report were questions that last time we saw this on depreciation and the asset management, asset register, and those are answered quite fully, and so I accept those. But I think we also brought up last time the question of Brexit, and like everybody else, we're still no clearer today than what we were at the last time. So I certainly support this, and did Councillor PURDY move it?
I did not, Councillor, because I think it's unfair that others have.
Right, well I will move it, because I think that the finance team here, the one to be absolutely proud of.
Thank you for that, Councillor FLITTER. Councillor Bateman.
I'd like to say what a good report it is as well, and I'd like to second it, please.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Yes.
Councillor Rattle, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
I did acknowledge you.
You did indeed. Yeah. Thank you for coming along, John. I'm sorry you've had to wait an hour and 20 minutes, so I think you deserve some inclusion in the discussion, etc. I think it's already been stated that the report, in a sense, to approve an audit letter is a little bit of a formality, because we had I remember too, Steve, a very good discussion on the excellent report you had in July, and there were one or two issues that we were teasing out, and you handled them extremely well. I would just like to bring a couple of things to your attention. First of all, can I just ask directly, the Chancellor's statement the other day, was there anything at all that gives local authorities hope on the financial future? In your opinion?
Unqualified statement. I think on that front it's very much a wait and see agenda. Obviously there was a statement that current levels of expenditure would be preserved as against cut, but how much one can read into that, because as usual the devil is always in the detail, I couldn't possibly say.
Yeah. No,
I asked that question particularly because you tend to get the sort of surface as a member of the public, or even as a councillor, you tend to get the sort of surface presentation and not the details of announcements. I, for one, let me say, are getting extremely frustrated by this council's financial position. I accept it as a picture of reality, but it doesn't give me any great hope for the remainder of my council service, because for the next 3 or 4 years we are again in a climate of austerity and needing to make savings. I'm asking you a leading question again, unfortunately, but you are certainly more proficient and professional in these areas than I am. Do you feel that there is any movement at all towards a more secure financial future, even if it's 5 years down the line, for local authorities like ourselves?
I'm afraid I'm going to have to sort of almost reiterate what I said before. which is only time will tell.
Yeah.
The government has made a statement that for the foreseeable future it will preserve existing levels of expenditure, but until we understand the detailed proposals around that and what it means in terms of exact allocations going out to authorities, it will be impossible for Karen to take a detailed view.
I thank you very much for your reply and of course your honesty and direct. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Ratcliffe. Obviously, I think we all need a ball to look into to see what's happening in the future in regards to local government and everywhere else at the moment, even main government. Anyway, moving on. It's been proposed and seconded. All in favour? Thank you, that's brilliant. Item 14, new electronic recruitment partnership. I'll move to Paulson, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Well, this authority, along with all other Derbyshire authorities, has for a number of years participated in a recruitment partnership through a portal hosted by Derbyshire County Council. This has proved extremely successful for this authority over the years. It has enabled us to reduce our own internal resources insofar as recruitment activities are concerned. It's enabled us to access a significant potential market for employees. Indeed, in 2018, there were over 200,000 registered users on this particular system. However, that system has now become obsolete, and the County Council have some considerable time been working on a replacement system. And the report before you this evening is seeking authority for the District Council to continue within that partnership. However, inevitably with any IT procurement exercise and upgrade, there's always an upfront capital cost, and that's the principal reason why this report is being brought to members for consideration. CLT have considered this issue, and it is considered that it still represents good value for the authority because of the access to the employment market that it provides. Whilst we don't recruit significant numbers of vacancies, the number of vacancies we have recruited over the last 12 or 18 months demonstrate that this will still be a cost-effective solution for us once the initial capital investment has been taken into account. As an authority, we do struggle to attract employees due to the location, the high house prices, the wages which the District Council and other local employers are able to pay, and therefore having access to the best possible pool of employees is to this authority's advantage. And when we're looking at a pool of 200,000 potential users, that is very significant indeed and far greater than we could ever hope to attract were we to pursue individual advertisements for roles. So members are asked to consider approval of a one-off capital investment in the system which will allow us to continue the partnership, and then there would be an ongoing revenue implication which would be taken into account as part of the annual budget setting exercise.
Questions? Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. I enjoyed reading this report. I thought the frustrations that the officer who wrote the report felt in his dealings with the County Council came through in the early part of the report. And that made me worry that there may be some risks associated with this move. While I'm sure there is a benefit, I will support this. Are there any risks that the Council is aware of, the officers are aware of, associated with using the service provided by the County Council?
Thank you, Chair. There's no anticipated risk to the portal because the portal is actually up and running now, so it has been proven to work. Clearly, the frustration which has come through in the report is the amount of time it's taken to get to this point, and the lack of clarity which we've had as an authority in terms of the development costs and the future ongoing resourcing implications. And that issue, the corporate leadership team did spend some considerable time evaluating, but we did come to the conclusion it still is in the Council's interest in the longer term, and that's why the recommendation is before you.
Councillor Paul.
Yes, I'm thinking of a conversation we had last night at the meeting, and Ash was speaking about how difficult it is to get young people in to take on some of the work that has to be done. Does this system cover all vacancies that we have, and do the adverts that are on there encourage younger people to take up some of the posts as perhaps apprenticeships and things like that? Are they included?
Chair, it does cover all vacancies, and the option which CLT have gone for is not the cheapest option, it's the second cheapest. But the reason for that is because it does allow us to manipulate the content of the system, so we can personalise it to Derbyshire Dales, and that is considered to be quite an advantage for us, rather than go with a very standard stage formats, if you like, in order to attract particular candidates, which may include apprentices and other similar persons.
Councillor Allison.
Can I just confirm one of the figures in the report? Are we looking at advertising on average 27 vacancies a year?
That has been the pattern certainly over the last 12 to 18 months. Clearly, it's an average cost of what's going to be £112 from November onwards. That equates to just over £3,000 per year, but that excludes the additional resource which will be required in our HR department to support advertisements, and also the costs of advertising, particularly professional journals and press. So when you are looking to recruit solicitors, planning officers and mental health officers, those advertisements in professional journals can be extremely expensive. So we're taking into account not just the number of vacancies, but the potential type of vacancies and the cost per vacancy.
Can I make a comment? You don't have to wait. I procured and implemented a recruitment system for the organisation that I work for, and looking at the costs of this doesn't seem a very good life for women to me.
Councillor Rathles.
Well, as I say, in response, Chair, we have been effectively part of a partnership. The costs have been outside of our control in terms of the development of this particular system. But in terms of the ongoing costs of us participating in the system, it is considered to be best value for us, given the issues that I have raised.
Councillor Ratcliffe.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, you've almost hinted that something was going through my mind, in a sense. Formerly it was £112 more or less per advertisement. We had an average of 27 a year, so that would stack up to the annual payment that we are committing to, the £3,500. It did cross my mind that £3,500 might be the payment made, whether it be 27 or indeed 100.
That's correct, Councillor Ratcliffe.
Yes.
It is the annual payment that will be made for participation in this particular portal. And clearly the number of vacancies that we have changes year on year. Sometimes it will be less than 27, sometimes it will be considerably more. But for that 3,000 or 3,500 payment, what we need to bear in mind is if you were to advertise for a solicitor, the cost of that advertisement alone will be the best part of £1,500. Because you're advertising in a professional journal and the market is very, very small that you are accessing. What we are accessing here is a much wider jobs market, which a lot of the national sort of portals will plug into, things like Jobs R Us and similar portals like that. So the market that we can access is far, far greater. So it would only take us to recruit 2 solicitors, which we have done in the last 12 to 18 months, and you spent more than £3,000 straight away.
Are there any more councillors wishing to speak on this? Councillor Purdy.
Well, I'm happy to move the recommendation, but I'd like to pick up on Councillor Harrison's point at the moment. How are people signposted to this portal, Paul? And taking in view of what Councillor Harrison just said, I think we have to go with this because we've got no alternative on the table. But I mean, if Councillor Harrison is talking about an alternative that's more cost effective, I can only recommend that you engage with the Chief Executive at some point, and I like your example. If there's something better out there, then let's look at it next time round. But for the moment, I think it's right that we should approve this. So how are people signposted?
In terms of the signposting, we clearly advertise on our own website vacancies. But the advantage of being in the partnership is that people who access other Derbyshire websites will also see jobs advertised at Derbyshire Dales. So everybody's jobs are visible to each other. But also it's the access to that 200,000 registered users, which is the real benefit.
So I'll move it. Thank you.
Do I find a secretary for that?
I'll second it.
Councillor Wakeman, thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? Upon that, it's been moved and seconded. All in favour? Against?
14 in favour.
So that carries. Thank you. Item 15. Customer Innovation Project Update. Mr Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Particularly for the benefit of new members who won't be aware of this particular project, this is an updating report to inform of progress since members last considered this issue back in February of this year. But just to quickly recap, at the back end of 2018, the Council set up what it called the Customer Innovation Hub. And this was a group of officers which worked on a particular project to evaluate how this council engages with its customers. And an awful lot of work was put into that, including customer surveys, and analysis of our existing processes and the way that we work, and particularly the quality of service that we deliver. And one of the outcomes of that was that effectively the council gives an appearance that a lot of its services are delivered digitally, when as a matter of fact they do rely very much heavily upon fairly outdated back office support type systems. And what we were looking to do was to develop a system which was much more user friendly to customers, much more accessible at the times the customer wants to request a service, and promote a culture of digital by choice. So following on that work at the back end of 2018, a report was considered by this committee in February of this year, whereby members approved significant additional resources in the capital programme to procure a customer relationship management system. This report updates members on the progress since you approved those resources, and effectively it advises that we now have recruited 2 officers to a particular digital transformation team. A procurement exercise has been undertaken. We have procured a CRM system, and that is now in the course of development. The report also outlines some of the key milestones that we are going to be looking to achieve, with a view to the actual system being up and running by February-March of 2020. Now, this is going to be a significant benefit to our residents and communities who have business with the District Council. It's going to promote greater accessibility, greater choice, much more online service delivery, but it will also deliver efficiency savings in the support service that we provide. So in accordance with the February resolution, this is a 6-month update report, and I'll have to take any questions on this.
Any questions?
Yes. Thank you, Chair. I will ask a question, if you don't mind, Paul, and just make a comment too, if I may. I mean, I'm very happy to move this report because, you know, having some previous knowledge of the work going on and the intentions behind this, I know it is only for this council's benefit, and I think it is moving that way and making rapid strides towards that. I wondered whether or not there had been any interface or dialogue with Jim and the communications and marketing strategy. It seems to me that there might be some relationship there, or at least benefits from having a discussion with somebody who is clearly involved in publicising the council's benefits, etc., and working with the public too.
Yes, very much so. Jim and his colleague Gara are actually part of the project team, so it's absolutely critical that this team does work closely with the communications team, and that will continue throughout the project.
Yeah. Can I just make a quick comment, just that you might wish to note, but you're free to overlook it if you don't consider it to be worth addressing. But as a councillor and as a service user, I find the automated, digitised switchboard operating at this moment as extremely annoying and frustrating. To ring 761100 and then to be met by a rather faceless, although I have to know who it is, faceless voice saying, you know, can you choose from one of the 4 options, and then going spending 2 minutes going through them all before finally leaving me to engage with a human voice, which is what I want in the first place. I just find it, you know, it's a move that seems to have been adopted by commercial organisations, and it seems to be, you know, quite a widespread source of complaint. So I'd like to think that perhaps we could just have a look at that and think what, and ask perhaps the customers, the service users, what they really think about that.
Can I just comment on the reason for that, Councillor Ratcliffe? I don't think it's desirable, but it's necessary, unfortunately, to comply with the GDPR regulations. We are obliged to give an upfront advisory note on our privacy arrangements in handling call data, and that's the only way we can do it, by interrupting every single call. The alternative is to instruct all our agents to repeat that verbatim every time they pick the phone up. So unfortunately it's a necessary evil.
You did say you was prepared to move that, Councillor Ratcliffe. Am I taking that you have moved it?
Yes.
Thank you. Do I find a seconder? Councillor Morley. Anybody else wishing to speak upon this? Councillor Morley.
Yes, it's just language in reports. Language in reports sometimes. If you've not written the report and being immersed in it, it hits you in the eye sometimes, and I read them as if I was somebody reading this as a member of the public. If you look at 1.1, it says minimise avoidable contact, and I don't like. I think that's sort of, if I was a member of the public, I would think none of my contact is avoidable and needs minimising. At first, those first 3 words, I think we ought to be a bit more careful sometimes that way, and think about how people are going to read it and listen, how it sounds as we write it. I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? Then it's been moved and seconded. All in favour? It is moved. Thank you. Item 16, complaints monitoring. Sandra, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this is our annual report of complaints monitoring, and this period obviously takes us back to the previous council as well as the period into this particular term. So first of all, we look at the council's official complaints, and you'll see that this year we're slightly up in the number of complaints, and the profile of the complaint roughly matches the relative profile of our services. Anyone dissatisfied with the response at the complaint stage can actually ask for an internal review by our Chief Executive, and we must be doing something right because that number is down on the previous year. One thing I'm conscious of is that in reporting this to you year on year, we seem to be just categorising complaints without perhaps getting back to the cause and reporting to you on how we can do things better. So I'm suggesting that we actually review our complaints procedure within the next couple of months and report back to you on a new scheme in November. What I'd like to aim at is making service managers more responsible for the first point of contact complaint, and I think it's a healthy organisation that can deal with service complaints quickly, and I think we've got a good record of that, but currently we don't have a single reporting base for that, and I think our new CRM will enable us to capture that information, perhaps attach a performance indicator where we can prove how well we deal with service issues, and instead of a member of the public dictating whether they want their issue dealt with at a formal stage, we should allow all complaints to go through at service level first of all, unless they hit certain triggers, and I'm suggesting just provisionally at the moment that those are matters which affect the council's reputation, perhaps are about the behaviour of an employee, or which relate to health and safety, which would automatically be accelerated. Formal complaints would also include where there hasn't been a response, because quite frankly there isn't an excuse for not dealing with a response, and those would go to a head of service, and I'm hoping that allowing the head of service to concentrate on the actual causes of formal complaints, we can get to any policy improvement which might mitigate the repeat of that complaint in the future. The second level of complaint moves on from the internal review to the local government ombudsman. That's an external organisation that independently reviews our complaints. Now, on the face of it, we've had 5 matters dealt with within this period, and 3 of those have been upheld by the local government ombudsman. And again, on the face of it, that doesn't look healthy. But if I could just explain that these complaints aren't dealt with within the same period in which they're received. And the first one, for example, where the complaint was upheld involving maladministration and injustice, that took over 2.5 years to come to fruition because it was a very complex matter. When there is a complaint where maladministration has been found, we have to report that to council, and we have to suggest some remedial action, and I'm happy to tell you that all of those matters have previously been reported to committee and all improvements have been implemented. The next element of the complaint is about our confidential reporting policy, and I'm again pleased to say that there have been no reports in this period. And then lastly, about elected members. The number of complaints goes up and down, and in the number of years that I've been reporting this, I can say that there are usually a trigger for complaints about elected members, and planning is number 1. If someone doesn't like the outcome, they will complain about your behaviour. I hope you can see from the summary there the type of complaints, and that we really don't have very much to worry about. But nevertheless, we can't dismiss a complainant who wishes to raise something in good faith, and we do go through the process quite rigidly in assessing that for you. That's a quick summary. Happy to answer any questions. Councillor Slack.
I noticed that car parks, 19.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I noticed car
Can you put
parks.
your mic on, please?
Sorry. I noticed car parks. There were 19 last year,
Yeah, the particular one about car parks is in the previous year we had a spike of complaints which is about the residents' car parking permit, not the one that all residents are entitled to, but the permit that's attached to particular car parks. You may recall that we increased the fees in some residents' car parking passes.
That's a reason.
Councillor Hobbs.
Chair, I'm happy to move this report. I'd like to thank Sandra for going through it and explaining how the current procedure works. We need to be in our council, we are open to complaints and looking at them fairly and publicly, accepting if we do wrong. I look forward to seeing the revised complaints procedure in November and to see how we can move on from this. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Ratcliffe.
Yes, thank you, Chair. No questions, but just following on from Councillor Hobson, I'll certainly second it. I think the complaints, I don't perceive any particular trend here. Some areas have risen slightly, others have decreased. It's very much up and down. Of course, it's regrettable whenever there are complaints, and they must be, of course, adequately dealt with. Which leads me to just a quick comment, if I may, because for me, the essence of the report, which is you've alluded to, is the intention to adapt our policy. So it's paragraph 1.3, the review of the complaints procedure. Now, I have to say, your point about, the confusion in practice as to when a matter becomes a formal complaint as opposed to a service matter is a very sensible and pragmatic view to take. But I think that service users would still need a reassurance that their concerns are being adequately dealt with. Not simply that this council is adapting its policy in order to try and reduce and restrict the complaint avenue and the number that appear in our reports. So, I look forward to seeing it, and I know it will be very professionally dealt with, and no doubt, I'm sure it's one that we'll be able to agree to when it comes along. But I just wanted to make that point that, you know, that we are not trying to, in any sense, say to, you know, we don't want you complaining, you know, we're not an authority that you know, I'm sure take that view. We are very open, transparent, and take things very seriously when residents have a concern.
Yeah, I think, Chair, just on that point, this isn't a way of reducing the number. It's in a way of presenting a more accurate picture of service issues that currently isn't represented in this report. Councillor FLITTER.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, you know, I was always brought up to believe that, you know, you can't please all the people all the time. In fact, I think that's a lesson Boris ought to take it on board just at the moment. But on a serious matter, it is important that this council listen to complaints and not just brush them aside, as sometimes is the perception, because what seems a minor task and complaint to the authority is a very serious issue to those making a complaint. So it is right that we get our systems right, and we do take that on board. We listen, and wherever we can act, we should be acting. So, like Councillor Hobson, I would be interested to actually see what comes forward in the way that we deal with complaints in that review. But I must just point out that I did have a case with a resident's parking permit not long ago, and I have to commend the officers, because I had to, after the complaint came in, I had to write and support this gentleman because of special circumstances. The officer took that on board as local knowledge, and he rectified the situation, which I thought was an excellent way forward, because if you look at black and white policy, that would have been indescribable. But he took that local knowledge, he sorted the problem out, and everything now is fine. But so I would like to see within the review that if there is an opportunity for local information from members, it should be sought, because obviously, you know, we're on the ground, we know if there are problems, and we may be able to help.
Thank you, Chair. Just looking at the table which details the complaints by category, I'm just curious about refuse collection. It's the one that's the biggest, and it's gone in the wrong direction. Is there anything jumping out from the complaints that are coming through? How's that feeding into the contract reviews moving underway?
I think one of the problems with this particular report is we're not capturing all the issues relating to the contract. That's another reason why the timing of this complaint needs to come in with the new contract, the new CRM, so that we can properly account for the number of failures on the contract, the proper contract management. But it's an example of where a minor issue, perhaps of a missed bin, at the complainant's request, has gone through the formal route rather than through the contract route, which we need to rectify ahead of the new contract start.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Chair.
Councillor PURDY.
Thanks, Chair. I think it's always difficult to assess what is a complaint. I mean, is there a definition of a complaint? One can interpret differently. Your classic example, Sandra, is the missed bin, and that turns into a complaint. Well, that can be dealt with at face value. But it does concern me with regard to, for example, true-only complaints on travel sites. Given the furore and the complaints that we councillors have endured over years, and particularly recently at the ABC, how do we interpret all of that chatter out there complaining about the travellers and the issues into two only recorded events? Does this also include what we members receive as a complaint. So I'm a bit concerned how we capture this. I'm all for the review. I think that's essential, because I think there's a matter of reputational issue here with authority, how we deal with complaints. I'm pleased to hear that example from Councillor FLITTER, but of course we are aware that there are some people that we can never satisfy. They all seem to want to complain. So it's a mixed bag, this, and I think it's one that needs bottoming more, and so I'm pleased to see the review.
Just on that issue, we do have a definition of a complaint, and it's based around dissatisfaction with the level of service that our customers expect. It's quite broad, and I think that's an acceptable definition of a complaint. But you've pointed on another reason for doing this review of complaints. We do get complaints in about travellers, and quite rightly they're going to the first point of contact as a service issue. They're not captured in one place for us to represent to you. These are only the ones that have gone through the form route, i.e. they've not been satisfied with Tim's answer in the first place.
I knew it was worth me waiting till this late in the meeting. My team, of course, get a lot of complaints about traveller sites or lots of other things. In the environmental health team, or part of the environmental health team, their main job is dealing with customer complaints about something. And for us, they're requests for services. They're asking environmental health to do something. In the case of a traveller site, they want to find out what we're doing about that. What Sandra's recorded as a formal complaint is when they're not happy with the response they get from the environmental health team. We do record all the complaints that the team gets in relation to a traveller site. They're all available on a database. That's not quite the same thing as Sandra reports here.
Thank you for that. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Pauling.
I'm sorry to add to it. In that case, knowing that a complaint has got a definite definition and it's really quite, when it gets to that point, it's quite gone quite a way along the line, why we've got one public convenience complaint in 1718 and 8 in 1819 when we were supposed to be improving the service?
Changing stance of complaints from one year to the latest. The latest one is all centred on charging, not cleanliness. No, but these are things that you will need to know in terms of policy development. What is the nature of the complaint, why they're being repeated, and what can we do about it? And I think that's the thing that we're not focusing on enough at the moment, hence the review of the policy.
Okay, thank you about that. So with that, I've got proposal and second. All in favour for this? Thank you. That's passed. Item 17, amendment to scheme of officer delegation. I'll move to Karen for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is quite a straightforward report, I hope. Requesting approval for a minor change to the scheme of officer delegation. The change is described in paragraph 1.3 of the report. It's simply to change the subject of the delegation from valuation office agency hearings to valuation tribunal hearings. The rest of the delegation remains the same, including the officers to whom the power is delegated. It's been necessary to bring this because we've recently been informed of a council tax appeal that's going to be heard by a tribunal. And in checking the delegation, we realised that the description wasn't quite correct. If we didn't alter it, there's a risk that when the case went to court, the court could find that the officer that we want to represent the council is deemed to not have a proper delegated authority to act. And in that case, we probably wouldn't be able to put in a defence. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Purdy.
Chair, well, as Karen says, this is simple. It says on the tin it's perfunctory, so I move it.
Anybody else wishing to make a comment? Upon that, it's been proposed and second. All in favour? Thank you. Item 18, review budget monitoring quarter 1 for 2019-20.
Thank you, Chair. This report summarises the financial position that we're forecasting for 2019-20. It's based on activity for the first quarter of the year, but we've projected some of the variances and the impact of those to give the effect for a full year. So as the report says, the full year effect that we predict is an overspend of £46,000. That represents less than 0.5% on a budget of £9.6 million. So effectively we're on track. If the underspend did continue to the end of the year, then in accordance with our medium-term financial strategy, that would be funded from the general reserve, which does have an adequate balance. So I'm not too concerned about a relatively small overspend. The significant budget variances, the reasons for the overspend, are set out in the report. Happy to take any questions.
Councillor Paul.
Yes, Community and Environment Services at 1.7, it says the public conveniences income budget is forecast to be underachieved by £13,000. Could you tell me what the figure is without the vandalism included? So, in other words, how much has we actually lost on the toilets rather than on trying to repair them because of theft and vandalism?
The 13,000 represents the variance from the budget that we have
Yes.
and what we're actually receiving.
Yes.
So we can't really disaggregate the cause. All we can record is what level of income we're receiving. We know that some public conveniences have been vandalised, so we've not been able to collect income from those. But we also know that this was the first year of charging, so the budget itself was very much a guess. And also, in addition to that, the profile of the budget over the years in an estimate as well. We anticipate that we'll get more income in the summer because our parks and so on are busier. So this first year it is quite difficult to monitor income.
Anybody else wishing to make any comments? Then I'd like for a mover, please. Councillor Chapman, thank you. Councillor Slack, do you wish to make any comments on this? Seconded. Upon that, it's been proposed and seconded. All in favour? Thank you, that's moved. Item 19. Arrears for write-off. Karen again, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This report asks members to approve write-off of totalling £83,205.58. The details of individual cases are set out in Appendix 1 to the report, which also gives the reasons for the write-offs. The majority of cases involve debt relief orders, insolvency and bankruptcy, and in such cases debts can't be recovered and really the only option is to write them off. Before seeking write-offs, our partner, Avato, pursues recovery in line with the Council's debt recovery policy. And as stated in paragraph 1.4 of the report, it should be noted that if any information comes to light about any debts that we have written off, which will enable subsequent further recovery, we will reinstate the debt and pursue it. I'd like to point out that working with Avato, they have achieved good rates of collection for debts as set out in the report. The write-offs that we're asking you to approve here represent a very small proportion of the total debt collected, and that's described in part 2 of the report. So these write-offs, for council tax, for example, are less than 0.1% of the debt we collect. For business rates and for sundry debtors, less than 1%. The only area where it's a higher percentage is housing benefits, where it represents 5.3% of the debt that we're trying to collect. But housing benefits, as I tried to explain in the report, is a very difficult area to collect from. The people are already on very, very low incomes. Any arrangements we make with them to pay their debt generally involve an attachment to benefits, which has to be reasonable, There was one case I looked at the other day, and the maximum amount we could attach was £3.70 a week. So obviously it's going to take a long time to collect any debts. I'm pleased to say that on housing benefit overpayments, the arrears itself has recently come down significantly. So I think Abato are doing as good a job as we can hope. And members that have been here a while will remember that you did approve an additional amount of funding for an extra officer in that section, and I think that's beginning to pay off now. So finally, I'd like to point out that in the case of council tax and business rates, the cost of the write-off doesn't fall wholly on the district council. So in the case of council tax, we're the billing authority, so we have the legal duty to authorise the write-off or not. But the actual cost of it is shared with other bodies. So Derbyshire Dales is responsible for 11% of the cost of write-offs related to council tax and 40% of business rates. Happy to take any questions. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. It's a point of clarification on the benefits over payments. In paragraph 2.9, I didn't quite understand. I can see that there are three numbers in there, and the ratio between the two of those numbers and the two numbers is 5.3%, which is the third number. So the ratio is correct, but I'm not sure about the first sentence. I didn't really understand why it's benefits over payments, the 471,000, but I think that's my misunderstanding.
The whole debt that we're talking about relates to benefit overpayment. So these arise where we're paying somebody housing benefit and their circumstances change. So that generally would reduce their entitlement. And if there's a delay in them telling us that, it means we overpay them. So we then raise an invoice to recover that amount of overpayment.
But is the raised invoice 471,000 or is it 24,000? I think the numbers may be the wrong way around, I'm not sure.
So the total benefit overpayment invoices that were raised in 2018-19 totaled £471,000. So that's the total of all the invoices we sent to people where they'd overpaid. And the £24,968 relates to the amount we're now asking you tonight to approve for write-off.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Ratcliffe.
Thank you, Chair. On the previous report, your financial risk for the situation that we were looking at, which was an underspend of about 46,000, that was going to be taken from a reserve of 1.2 million, was assessed as high. Here we're talking about a write-off of 83,000, more or less double that. You're saying that the financial risk here is medium. Now I think I understand your logic, but can you just, just for my benefit, if nobody else, just explain your reasoning?
So I'll start with this one. So this one I assessed as medium because, as I explained, not all of the £83,000 falls on the district council. So I took into account the relative shares. And I do work with rough guidelines. So the rough guidelines I use is that up to £30,000 are normally assessed as low. From that to about 100,000 are normally assessed as medium, and over 100,000 as high. So that's how this one became a medium. The risk in the other report, I wasn't just talking specifically about the forecast overspend. I was reflecting there on the financial situation generally, about our financial position, and in that extent it's high with all the uncertainty.
Eating into the reserve by having to... Yeah, I thought that was it.
Councillor Wayne.
Yes, Chair. How long would you leave the debt open for?
In cases where we've got a payment arrangement or an attachment of earnings or an attachment of benefits, it'll stay open as long as it takes several years. Councillor FLITTER.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Chair, I mean, when we talk about percentages, and they're very low percentages, but when we actually look like most people look at the figure of 83,000, it's a lot. And there's very little chance of getting any of this back. And I know the system why it happens this way. But when we look at business rates, and I've spoken to 79 businesses this last 3 weeks in Matlock, and some of the conversations have gone around business rates, I'll tell you. And it's always a wonder, because we've got these people that come into town and they set up shop, and a year later they're gone, and they've not paid any council tax in any business rates. And I wonder, what's the system for collection, and can't we improve that so that this debt doesn't mount up to significant amounts?
Well, the recovery procedure is set out in the council's debt recovery policy, and that's what Avato follow. I can't remember the exact details for business rates, but as soon as we get to know who an occupier is, we'll send a bill. If they don't respond to that bill, they get reminders. If they don't respond to those, we go to the magistrates' court, and they will send in enforcement agents as well. So it's only when we've exhausted all of those that we'll even consider write-off. But in most of the cases on Appendix 1 tonight, in most cases the companies have ceased trading or become insolvent, and there's nobody now to recover the debt from.
Yeah, exactly.
Councillor PURDY.
Thank you, Karen. Councillor is right when you look at the fact that, we're a cash-strapped authority, 83,000 is a lot of money. And I've never heard a report back, Karen, about what you have recovered in the following year, 2 years, 3 years. Has that ever happened? Have I missed it? Or, is there some positives coming out of debt recovery after this report? I'm happy to move it, by the way, because I think, we don't want to lose £83,000, but then you turn it on its head with the 99% plus record of recovery from Avato, and they're now satisfied Avato's doing a very good job.
So there's two issues there. The first issue is, if you look in the table that's in paragraph 2.3 of the report, that shows for council tax and non-domestic rates the percentage of debt for each of those years. So these are not just in-year collections. So these change slightly each year. So we are still pursuing and collecting some debts that go back to 2014-15 and probably earlier. Yeah, that's just a snapshot as of the 31st of July. So they do still pursue them. The other thing that I probably need to point out is that when we set the council tax and we work out what it should be, we make an assumption that we will collect 99.2%. And you see that most of these figures have actually come out more than that. And we have a similar calculation that we do when we calculate what income we think we might get from business rates. So these collection that Avato do, they are coming out ahead of what we forecast.
It's been proposed. Do I find a second? Councillor FLITTER. Anybody else wishing to make any comments? On that, it's been proposed and seconded. All in favour? At this point in time, I'm going to item 20, exclusion of public and press. Do I find a proposal for this?
Move it, Chair.
Seconded. All in favour of the press and public being excluded? It will be.